Hi there! Now I have made the inside of the hull and I also have the outside of the hull ready. So I can proceed with the next step, and that is to build the top side of the hull. And for that I need to unscrew the bulkheads, the temporary bulkheads that I have on the strongback, and put them back into the hull where they are supposed to be. There are still some shape changes that I don't like. If I just screw down here, I will get a gap. Also here I have gaps that are larger than perfect. It would be possible to fill the gap, but there might be another method. The shape changes came with the glassing. Thus, if I do the sanding to smoothen the surface now, I will remove some of the resistance to changing back the shape, without wasting valuable work that is still needed to do later. While I'm already dusty, I might as well take care of the inside. If I remove material from both sides, the laminate will get more flexible. In the bendy parts I need to work by hand. Vacuum off the dust to improve inside working conditions. Now I can start screwing the bulkheads in place. First I apply some pressure. When all is fine, I can screw. I screw about a centimeter from the edge. In the front station I have gaps. Perhaps you remember from an earlier episode that I let the strips follow their own bend instead of following the molds. To access the individual molds and the bulkheads, I start unscrewing. I will leave the station on the strongback for the other hull, so I only remove the actual molds. This takes more time now, but will save time later. When all molds and bulkheads are loose, I can lift. I left some molds on the strongback. These molds will need modification before use on the next hull. I also left some bulkheads that are too thin to screw into. But most molds and bulkheads are in place. Now I can start thinking about how to modify the molds. They will also need to be placed in the correct place lengthwise. How much wider do this one need to be? I add this to the blueprints for each measure. And I check with the strip to see that it will fit. One could also mark directly on the mold. With some trim margin I do a first cut. And try it in place. Looks better, but I will need to cut off more. You can see that it's too high compared to the second mold. So I prepare for a second iteration. Drawing a new cutting line. For some stations I make completely new molds from leftovers and trim them. So that I get a good fit. Lining up before screwing. I make the front wider on the top side to have a better base plate to screw into. The stays will transfer a lot of force into this area. I'm not happy with the fit. And find what's the problem. Some quick work with the saw and the sander. And it looks great. Back in place. It fits very well. Tape is needed to not glue the stations in place permanently. As I change the top side, also the bow needs alteration. I try out a new bow. The bulkheads will be glued in place in the first hull. Thus I measure out a new set to the second hull. I also draw new lines before cutting them out. Next time I really hope to start building the top side. Please join me then. And if you found this episode informative, please leave a like or post a comment.